So Aaron Ross and John Barrows just asked me what I was going to talk about, and I said I'm going to tell everybody all the mistakes that we made over the last 5 years, and hopefully save people a few bucks along the way. It's funny, it's when I talk to young entrepreneurs, that's one of the first things that they ask me. Tell me all the things that you've done that you would never do again. Tell me all the things that you've done that have really worked for you. So I think hopefully it would take you through some lessons learned. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about who we are so you understand what type of business we're in. Acquia was the fastest growing company in the United States, private company in the US over the last 5 years as measured by the Deloitte Fast 500. We're the #1 software company in the Inc. 500 in 2012. We have about 4,000 customers. It's a mix of large enterprises all the way from, for example, NBC Universal, who runs MSNBC on our platform, through the White House, who runs whitehouse.gov on our platform. And we also have lots of mid-market customers. I think that's important to talk about in this context, and that we're selling to two very different audiences with today 2 different sales teams. We have about 470 employees. We have offices all over the world. We have our inside sales headquarters in Boston, in Reading in the UK, and then we have field offices all over the world. And we have the typical NFL slide of investors with lots of great investors. So I thought it was important, one kind of key difference for us, and one kind of the beauty of my job is we sell to a very captive market. So we provide products and services around a platform called Drupal. People use Drupal to build websites. The guy that created Drupal, Dries Buytaert, is the founder of Acquia. And the nice part about my job is we have a very captive market that we sell to. So there are 2 million existing Drupal sites, and we build products and services that are complementary to that Drupal ecosystem. And I'll talk a little bit about about why that was a great thing in the early days and why we've had to kind of break out of that mold. So Drupal, very large development community. The active development community, just in kind of size and magnitude, is about 2 times the size of the Linux development community. So it's the largest open source community in the world. So our journey. So when I started the company in 2009, we had just kind of gotten past the pre-revenue stage. We did about 2 million in bookings in 2009. 2010, we did 13 million in bookings, and we scaled to 31 million, to 55 million, to 83 million. We overachieved our bookings plan each year, which is a great thing, and it's been a great ride so far. But I think more importantly than this, I want to take you through at each stage that we've grown through some of the mistakes that we made and some of the assumptions that we made that didn't end up turning out to be exactly as we thought. So in 2009, we thought 2 million existing Drupal sites, we'll just build a big inbound inside sales model. We had heard all about the guys over at HubSpot, and they were cranking, and all of our investors says you need to be just like HubSpot. Enterprise sales is dead. You don't need people in the field. You just need to hire lots of inside sales people, onboard them, and build a big inbound marketing and inside sales engine. So our assumption was that we have lots of existing Drupal users. We'll build some very targeted assets, downloads of our products and assets, and the users will come. The lesson that we learned there was, regardless of how big the install base is you're going after, you need a massive content engine to attract them to your website, for example. So one of the things that I heard recently was Dharmesh from HubSpot said, I would have started building our content engine the minute that I had an idea about a product. So I would say that we underinvested in the early days in our content engine, and we ended up paying for it as we kind of had this assumption that if we built targeted assets, people were going to come and we generate lots of leads and so on. So we ended up starting off behind the 8 ball and building a great content engine. And I'd say today we've ended up in a really good spot, but I would say we should have invested much more heavily in building that content engine up front. So as we kind of moved through our journey, we got the content engine fixed. We got the inbound marketing and inside sales engine cranking. 2009 and 2010 was all about inbound marketing and inside sales. So 2 million to 13 million done exclusively via inbound marketing, then exclusively via inside sales over the phone. And then we thought, oh, we can just kind of scale this model until infinity, until we couldn't. And the lesson that we learned there was we were also in a very mature market. So although we were selling products to people that were already using Drupal, there were also large enterprises that were interested in Drupal that were also looking at our competitors, and we were missing out on those opportunities. So for example, one of the reasons why I got into this business and went to Acquia was back when I started this business in 1999. Companies that some of you may recall, some of you might have been too young to recall, but companies like Broadvision and Vignette and Interwoven and so on, these were all billion-dollar market cap companies back in the late 90s. And I said, it feels to me like we're entering a time where digital transformation is becoming one of the number one things on the roadmap with CMOs and CIOs and so on. And an open source play seems to be very well positioned there. So although we had a great inbound channel to the existing Drupal users, we were missing out on opportunities because we were in also a mature market, being the web content management market, and we were missing out on those opportunities. And we were also starting to see that as we scaled our inside sales team, we couldn't necessarily generate inbound leads as fast as we needed to feed all of those mouths. And at that point, I started doing some research, and enter Aaron Ross, who will speak later today in predictable revenue. We started talking a lot about what do we need to do to supplement the inbound marketing and inside sales engine that we have. And we began investing in an SDR function, or an outbound, exclusively outbound function. So then once we got that cranking, we started generating, we got our pipeline goals back on track. So we track pipeline on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, and our pipeline, kind of rolling average pipeline had gone like this, and then it went like this, and then we got the outbound engine cranking, and it started to go like this again. And we also started to sell to different kinds of organizations. So we started getting into re-platform discussions with very large enterprises. One thing that we learned was it's very hard to sell to those types of organizations with 23, 24, 25-year-old sales reps over the phone. These are CMOs, CTOs, CIOs, and they want you to come out and visit them. They want you to come out and do a demo. They want to build relationships. They want to go to dinner. And we started doing that, and we started closing much larger deals, $500,000 deals, $750,000 deals. We did a $5 million deal back in 2012. We did a $7 million deal in 2013. We started saying to ourselves, wow, now we just need to go hire lots of enterprise salespeople, put them out in the field, and we should be able to scale that just the same way that we scaled our inside sales model. One thing that we learned there was hiring people remotely in the field is really difficult. They require a much different level of onboarding and support, which we at the time weren't able to give them. And we also created a culture because we married up the enterprise salespeople with inside sales counterparts that really lacked accountability. And one thing you're going to hear me talk a lot about is building a culture of accountability. And we ended up in a scenario where the enterprise guy said the inside guy wasn't doing his job, and the inside guy said the enterprise guy wasn't doing his job, and so on. And we kind of ended up in a place and in a culture that lacked accountability. And I think that is something that's extremely important, that every person in the organization, whether it be the person that runs demand generation, or the SDRs that do outbound, or the ISRs that handle inbound, or the field people, all have some accountability toward pushing the ball forward, whether it be with pipeline or closed bookings or what have you. So about halfway through 2013, we realized we're in this place. We've hired lots of enterprise sales folks that aren't fully ramped. They're having a hard time ramping. We have kind of the ISR and SDR model, inbound and outbound model cranking. And then we also have this kind of general lack of accountability. And we sat down. I have a very good mentor on our board. One piece of advice that I can give all of you is look for board members that really add value in different functions. So for example, we have Tom Bogan on our board, who's the chairman of the board of Citrix. And Tom's a product and technology operator. So Tom provides lots of guidance to our operational teams and our product teams. We have a guy named Paul Salaberry on our board. Paul was the SVP of sales at Veritas back when Veritas was a $56 billion market cap company. And Paul is kind of my mentor on the board. Paul said, we got to break the whole sales model. So he said, go away, do some research. I went off and talked to lots of different organizations that were considered the high flyers in the market, research what they were doing, and we came up with a model that we believe puts accountability across all fronts. And we essentially totally broke the previous sales model that we had. So first of all, we said lead generation and demand generation needs to be a function that's owned by sales and marketing. So sales is going to own the outbound lead generation via our SDR program. We then created a separate team of ISRs, we call them, to handle all of our inbound leads. neither of these functions carry quotas, bookings quotas. They carry pipeline and sales qualified opportunity quotas. So we totally broke that down, created an SDR function and an ISR function. We then started ramping up our channel team, and channel for us is really an overlay. We don't have products that are easily resold. It's more of a channel influence model. We started ramping up our channel function. We gave the channel team a pipeline goal as well. The last thing that we started realizing was we have our business is very much a land and expand model. So the way that we built the subscription model, the way that we built the company is around getting in, selling our product to one site or one brand within a company, and then being able to expand that relationship across the enterprise. So we also gave our account management team, which was previously only handling renewals, we gave them upsell pipeline goals as well. So we really created accountability from a lead generation function all the way from what marketing was doing on the inbound side through giving pipeline goals and pipeline quotas to individuals within the sales organization. We then determined this whole thing around putting enterprise guys and inside guys on the same team and having shared quotas did not work. So we created the mid-market team, and these were primarily people that have been at the company for 4 and 5 years that we promoted up through the ranks, and they end up being our mid-market team, which for us is $500 million in revenue and under. And we created an enterprise team, which is traditional enterprise field salespeople handling accounts $500 million and over. And then the last thing we started doing is we started investing in carving out verticals. So for example, life sciences is a vertical with its own quota-carrying reps. They own name life sciences accounts. NGOs and nonprofits is its own team. They own named accounts. Higher ed is its own team. They own named accounts. So we've carved those out of the territories. So those reps travel a pretty large geography, and they own named accounts in specific verticals. And the geo reps own a fairly large geography, but they have carve-outs that don't get included in their geographies. Okay, I'll go quickly through this. So by the numbers, I get asked a lot about what are the right ratios for SDR to field person or quota-carrying reps to sales engineers. So we're on about $120 million bookings run rate for 2014. About $75 million of that net new. We have about 60 quota-carrying reps. It's split between mid-market and enterprise. We use a 1-to-3 ratio from a sales engineering perspective. In our business, especially on the enterprise side, we get involved in lots of proof of concepts and demos and so on. And we underinvested early on in pre-sales, and it probably cost us some. So recognizing that we needed a hefty pre-sales team, we're now at about a 1-to-3 ratio. Seems to be working well. We're at about a 1-to-3 ratio on SDRs, and we're at about a 1-to-4 ratio on inside sales reps. I mentioned the channel account management who handles renewals and upsell is also about a 1-to-3 ratio, and then we're at about a 10% management overhead. I talked a bit about this, so we'll go by that. One thing that I thought was interesting that we did, so I find a lot of companies, and especially companies that I was talking to before I landed at Acquia, they talk about, we have such a great pipeline. And they don't really know, they can't really tell you what the quality of that pipeline is. And I think that one thing that Tom was sitting up here and our team have done is they've really put some accountability between making sure that what goes into our system is validated. And I'll talk, one of the last things I'll talk about is building a validated sales process. So what we've done with our SDRs, which again is outbound, and ISRs, which are inbound, is they get paid on raw pipeline, and they also get paid on sales qualified opportunities that have been generated. So their incentive is to get the sales team to qualify in and put something in the pipeline that they've created in terms of raw pipeline. We then measure the reps on their conversion between things that are passed to them from either outbound or inbound and what they create as a sales qualified opportunity. So if we have a rep that's got really low close rates or conversion rates, we know that they're just converting everything, and therefore we have a performance issue with that rep. And we kind of created this kind of collegial battle between the SDR and ISR teams and the reps, where one's pushing to get the deal qualified, and the other one's saying, no, I really got to make sure that this thing belongs in the pipeline. So so I think kind of creating that culture of accountability between the two teams has certainly been key, and getting the I'm almost out of time. Sign. A little bit about the tools that we use. Some of these guys are here: Inside View, Connect and Sell, LinkedIn. We built our own internal tools for lead gen. We use Marketo, marketing automation, Salesforce for CRM, and platform we just implemented is Yesware for email productivity. And I'll spend one more minute. Yeah, I'll spend one more minute on this because I think this is an important kind of part of our engine. So one thing that I don't see enough of when I talk to young companies is validation in the sales process. So for us, if you put a deal into Salesforce as a qualified opportunity, you have to have what's called a validated discovery letter. So you've had to send a letter back to the prospect. You have to have received kind of confirmation that what you've heard is true and received validation on that. And that's the minimum requirement to get that deal in the system. We actually have a person on the sales ops team that goes through and reads every single discovery letter of every opportunity that's been created. And if you put something in the system that doesn't have a discovery letter, your opportunity gets zeroed out. And you get an email from her saying, I've zeroed your opportunity out. So it's going to stay at zero until you put a real discovery letter in there. The second thing is, if a deal gets into our commit, likely, which is gut feel, or upside categories, we need to do what's called a pursuit drill in the deal. We have a set of about 15 questions that we take the rep through on the deal. And if there's holes in it, we potentially push the deal back. And then lastly, if a deal gets into our likely number or our commit number, we have to have done what's called a vision to close, and that's done with someone in sales management. That is every step that has to happen in that deal from the day that you believe that deal is going to close back to today. And this has really kind of helped us clean our pipeline up and clean our metrics up. So I know if we generate 102% of our pipeline goal, roughly plus or minus 5%, we're going to execute on that if we execute right the next quarter. So that this is kind of really helped us in that regard. So what I'll do is I'll stop here, and we'll. Yep, we have time for one question. One question.
So do your SDRs push cold emails through Salesforce or Marketo?
We actually are now using neither. We're using Yesware, which is synced with Salesforce. So we found that by Yesware allows us to do kind of real-time messaging tracking, right? So you might send 5 emails to these 5 prospects and 5 emails to these 5 prospects, and within 5 minutes you know what kind of reception you're getting for that message. So we've actually gone to using that system to do that, and that's fully integrated with Salesforce. I'm not a big fan of having sales reps send emails through Marketo. I mean, to me, though, that's the come to an event, type of an email.
You can patent it, but I understand.
Right. Right. Do I have time for one more question?
Go ahead.
What's a good balance for your SDRs to fill the pipeline and cultivate the pipeline? Time management wise, how do you split that up between actually filling the pipeline and your SDRs qualifying what they fill the pipeline with?
Yeah, so we leave the qualification job to the sales team. So the goal of our SDRs is find prospects that feel like real, warm, live prospects for our reps. I mean, I kind of follow Aaron's mantra of you need to be putting the best leads in front of your best reps because that's what the reps are good at. And the less the reps can be out prospecting, the more you can be putting those leads in front of them, the better of an engine you build. One more?
So are your SDRs, then, are they compensated based on a number of leads they generated, a number of, like, they get in touch with the right person, the right time?
They're compensated based on the total raw pipeline that they generate in dollars and the sales qualified pipeline that they generate. And they can't get into accelerators on their raw pipeline until they hit their sales qualified pipeline goal.
So they get compensated the pipeline. Once it gets qualified, even if you lose the odds, that's the rep's responsibility.
Yep. Yep. Great. Thank you.